Hello, everybody. Welcome to the umpteenth episode of this splendid and very important podcast, loosely based around the world of real estate. This is Sofa Broker, and you are welcome to listen to myself, Solly Strickland, and my great friend and business partner over there, Mr. Daniel McPeake. And before we get going, I'm just going to because we talked about Americanization of real estate last week in the UK. The reason I'm wearing this rather splendid baseball cap is I just want to give a quick shout out to my NFL team, the New Orleans Saints.
Oh.
Took apart the Dallas Cowboys at the weekend. First NFL game of the season. Go Saints. The boys from the Bayou are back. Right. So, that's that bit done. Daniel?
Closest he ever got to really get involved in that, because we just had this conversation, is his dad owned a Trans Am. Did your dad have any other American cars, by chance?
He had loads, actually, because he used to import them from Florida.
Can you just break it down into your favourite two?
The Trans Am was epic, and he...
Did it have was it the Trans Am like from Smokey and the Bandit?
It was that... Yes, it was that one.
Did it used to fit up to your... was you at prep school then? It's prep school with posh kids going, it?
I was at primary school.
When you was at primary school, did it fit all the way up the drive?
No, he had to drop me at the end because the car was too wide to go down the pretty little sort of picket fenced thingy. It was rather embarrassing.
So you had to walk then all the way. Your dad would stop the car.
I had to do the walk of shame whilst all the Volvo estates and everything would go past me.
Driving
little
past.
Jonathan and Penelope going, yeah, sorry.
But there's nothing wrong with being called Jonathan and Penelope, by the way.
No. But yeah, he did. But the best car he ever had, American car, I mean, was a cherry red with white leather interior, 1973 Cadillac Eldorado convertible. And it had the sort of bit, the thing that Rolls Royces and Bentleys have on the front, the sort of the Flying Bee or the Silver Ghost bit on the front. This had a bull's head on the front. I swear to God.
That's mate, that's epic.
It was cool.
That's a proper cool car.
I know, it was wicked.
We had a Talbot Horizon once. my mum did, but we did have a Mark 1 Capri. My mum had a Mark 1 Capri in red, just a 1300, and it was quite old. And every time she used to take it out with me in it, you could do this back then, right? You could get the seat the front seat in the car.
Just late 60s.
Yeah. Right. So it's probably late 70s, right?
Nice.
So obviously there were a 2-door car. Yeah. So you get in, sit in the front. Seat belts were a rarity. So what I used to do is get the front seat belt, push it all the way forward, so the front seat belt touched the dashboard, and I would lay on it like I was Superman. Right, and my mum would drive around making a Superman theme tune.
You ever slam on the brakes?
No, because I would have gone like that,
like Superman.
But that was completely normal. People used to, and every now and then when she would get home, it would actually make itself lighter because it would have lost a part of itself. Like the red paint would flake off.
British engineering. They were made just down the road, actually, weren't they?
And but what the Capri has featured in a great car show that's recently ended. A great car, and I think you've got to admit
we had one.
We had a Mark 1. Yeah, we had a Mark.
What was ours? A 1600 GT.
1600 GT Mark 1 had half an engine in it. We bought it and we had it in my garage for 2 years and made a load of money on it. I know. But the idea wasn't to make money on it. We always wanted.
Did we make more money on that GT that year than we did in selling real estate?
Yeah,
probably. Yeah. No.
So. What's today?
Well, you I think you wanted to talk about something in particular today.
Yeah.
Didn't you see a little article or something?
Well, I noticed there'd been an article out recently about a very famous school. You might know the school, Solly. This school is ultra famous worldwide, and the people at this ultra famous worldwide, is it an academy or a school?
It's actually a registered charity.
Eton is a registered charity.
It is, but a lot of those schools are. But there's all sorts of talk about
Why is it a registered charity?
Because we're so poor, all the people that go there.
I did notice then my voice went up, Stan. Is that what you was moaning at me about? Sorry, AV guy just stepping in. Sometimes he says I'm too loud on this. Loud, not lad. Loud on
that Capri chat.
Yeah, on these chats. It was, the Capri, that was the best. The Mark 1, 3-litre had an Essex engine in it.
That's right.
It was called the Essex.
Lotus did the same thing. The
Yeah, but
Lotus Essex Esprit or something.
It's just not as cold. So, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, Eton.
So my alma mater.
So what I want to talk about is as we go into any walk in life, right? So we're going to say real estate because we're in it, but you could be a shoe salesman, you could be walking at Waterstones, you could be doing Joe the Juice, right? Whatever it is, I have listened to something the other day from a professor at Eton who said they're reintroducing.
Was he actually a professor or was he just a master? Was he a master?
It was some guy that really knew about it, right?
Okay.
But what do I know, right? You know, you tell me. You pull me up on it. This is
They're
your
not
bit.
professors. I think that's university, isn't it, Stan? Yeah.
All right. What was he then? What was
He was
the geezer
probably,
who
he was
used to
probably
like
the
me
headmaster of Eton, I'm guessing.
No, it was someone just chatting about it.
Was he at Eton?
Yes.
Would he be a master or possibly the provost?
Do we still call them masters? Isn't that a little bit wrong nowadays with like the way that we should be in the world?
Good point. I don't know. I left 30 years ago, so what the hell do I know?
So yeah, and what he made was
Talking of which,
yes,
quickly,
Yeah.
I've been and very topical.
Okay.
I received an email from the Old Etonian Association the other day inviting me to a 1990 and 1991 Levers Drinks event.
Why?
I've replied on your behalf.
Why? Can I come? Can you take a +1 and can it be me?
I'll look into it.
Anyone can come in this industry, whatever they're doing, but there is some stuff everyone's got to get good at, right? And we talk about getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. And it's very important that everybody gets good at. And I think that Solly, you and me and some others, and we've done it with the academy, we can probably pretty much teach everybody. You know, we can talk about the guy that we had come over from Dubai who wouldn't say boo to a ghost, who during the end of the academy, we couldn't shut him up.
Is this the Oracy thing?
Yeah. And so that's what I want to talk about, right? Yeah. I heard that public speaking, Eton was bringing back public speaking and something called Oracy, right? Stan, if you can kindly put this on the screen. I don't have a Scooby what Oracy is. So at this point, I would like to invite you to one. I mean, I can't even spell it. When I see, he was talking about Oracy, I thought it was going to be a great big long word with like lots of like Z's and Y's.
No, Oracy, so it's Latin, isn't it, Stan? So Oracy, as in what we're talking about, the ability to speak and communicate and listen to, the ability to speak publicly, which I think is a lost art. You're going to talk about that more than me. But Oracy is O-R. That comes from the Latin. It's where we get the word oral, mouth.
Why did you do that when you did oral?
Because oral, dentist, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Don't be naughty.
I'm not being naughty.
You
started it.
Then you've got
put things in your mouth.
Let me finish.
Then we've got Eton boy.
Then we've got Oracy, which is A-U, which I believe that is the ear. I was terrible at Latin. I think I got a C in GCSE, but it all comes from Latin.
Okay, so the fact that you even did Latin makes me feel terribly lower caste. No, I was going to say inadequate, but I didn't want to because you were talking about oral.
But
so is it so it's Oracy?
It's Oracy
versus
Oracy.
Oracy.
So we're talking about Oracy.
We're talking about the. So that is. He said it was like basically the ability to talk. Because me and you have learned doing this, there is a hell of a lot of people out there, and especially the younger kids that we're constantly promoting and want to come into anything to do with sales. That whatever you do, if you want a job and you want to get into anything, get into sales. A quick side point: if you're the guy in IT and you're working for yourself and you're doing IT stuff, yeah, when you're talking to someone and you're trying to promote your work, you're doing sales as well. Everything starts with sales. Okay, if a doctor has people, that are coming into his doctor's surgery, he needs more people being ill. Everything is about sales. Everything on the planet is about sales. Okay, so you need to speak, you need to talk, and you need to be good at it. When you talk about Oracy, then so break it down quickly into, because I don't know what that means. Like, do I do it?
Yeah, you've explained it perfectly. That's what it is. I think it is just the ability or it's the act of speaking publicly or to a room, the ability to speak. I can't really say much more about it unless there's something I'm missing here. I'm sure that I'm not an Oxford Don, so forgive me. But you're on the point anyway, and the importance of it. If a fine educational institution like the one you just mentioned is talking about it publicly and about how they want to promote it and do more about it, then I'm guessing it's quite an important thing for people to look at. Because if people are staring at their phones or at their laptops and not, and are losing the ability to even be able to order a coffee properly, then surely something has to be done about it. Because as you say, if we are selling ourselves or selling a product without unwittingly every single day of our lives or being sold to, then we need to know about it. We need to know about the ability to speak. And it may not be for everyone, but then, we've seen how those with the ability... What do I always say about me? Being I'm the most useless agent on the planet, right?
Yep.
But I'm very good at talking to people in their own homes. There you go. That's Oracy. And that's why I'm still here talking rubbish about real estate 20-something years later.
So it's the ability to talk to one person, two person, or 100 people, or 1,000.
They're probably, given that Eton was a great producer of politicians and
the 1%,
all of that sort of stuff.
Not the 1% me in the Hells Angels, the 1% me in Eton. Yeah,
same thing though. I'm guessing the ability to rever an engine, the ability in public, and the ability to speak in public. It still takes.
Well, it's still a collective, and you don't. Once you've been to it, and you stay being.
Well, they're both just as closed as shop, aren't they?
Yeah, like you just said. So
Shall we start an Old Etonian Hell's Angel chapter?
No. So have you ever, been in a situation at school where they taught you, because you went to school quite a long time ago.
Well, they taught me.
Yeah. And did they ever say, like, this is what you should do to speak? Was there any guidelines that we could nab around teaching people how to speak? Because the reason I'm asking that is, do people just speak naturally? And are they then naturally good at it and moving forward? Like, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it as part of the conversation. People always used to say to me, "Oh, you've got the gift of the gab." I don't know what that means.
Cliche, but
right?
It's true.
Yeah. But I probably have got the ability. So I wouldn't be bothered getting up and talking in front of 4 people or 4,000 people.
Me too.
And me and you would be best if we're not scripted.
And we both got to that position, being comfortable, in very different ways. It's still Oracy.
It's still... So is there any... How can we teach the guys and girls out there some tips? Because we don't know. I'm making them up on the phone.
Right. I think this goes all the way back to what we spoke about recently on one of our podcasts about nature versus nurture. Do you remember? We talked about entrepreneurs, like would Stan be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I do. So Stanley, that was in the Younger People podcast, wasn't it? We were talking about
that was a couple of podcasts ago. But I think maybe Oracy comes from the same thing, because your ability to speak, it wouldn't have been taught to you at school. My ability to speak wouldn't have been taught to me. Now, it probably comes from a slight, shall we say, public school arrogance that is sort of instilled in you. That definitely exists. This sort of slight arrogance to be able to go out and think that you can talk, because you're probably talking from a slightly... And I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that that's probably the inference about that.
Is that known as the public school swagger?
Possibly.
So when you can pull, you know that you're faking it, but you can pull it off because you have an element of swag about you. I don't know if you're
faking it. I don't think you can do this and fake it. I think if you have to do it because you've reached a position of power or a position in a business. You know how people, reluctant public speakers, you become CEO of Shell Oil, but you hate talking publicly, but you have to. I think that's different from what we're talking about. I think there is an element maybe of entitlement that means that, well, I can talk to a room of people, but then there's something called the Essex swagger, and that comes from something. There is that sort of, that ability to chat up a bird or do the white gold thing that you did. That must come from something.
So we have lesson number 1 then. I'm just going to pick that out because you just said it. Where did you say this guy was working that didn't want to talk about work? Was it Shell or something?
I just said Shell.
Yeah, so I'll use Shell as an example so we can stay on point. So the person joins, becomes the managing director of whatever Shell, doesn't want to talk publicly but has to. Say he had to do that for 3 years. I bet he becomes good at talking publicly after the 3 years.
Yeah.
Because one of the main things, anything you do, right? And it can be anything, right? So, for example, Solly, if you did 100 press-ups a week, so Stanley, can you divide 100 press-ups a week by 7 days a week? Is it 6?
No.
No, man, you did maths. I mean, hang on, can we put this on the screen? So it's 14. 14. Right, so if you did 14.28 press-ups a day, right, you would, over 3 years, get a bit buffer. Consistency, right? So the first rule we have with being able to talk is being able to be consistent in it. So if you're scared at the moment, you're in your bedroom, you don't really talk to people, there's not much going on, and everyone is a little bit afraid, right? Everyone is a little bit afraid of going out and talking to people because you've got to confront people. I mean, I don't know how many people actually don't go out their front door. I mean, everything's delivered to you. And I wouldn't talk about, the why that's happened, but everything comes to you, you don't go out. But if you're consistent in your position, if you're self-employed or you're working or whatever it is you have to do, if you're consistently training and talking to people, you're training yourself to talk to them, you're going to get better at it by default with it. Okay, so
Practice makes perfect.
yeah, so well done. So rather than
Very quickly on that bit, there was a thing that you said about being nervous about it. A lot of sportsmen, no matter how, like Federer or the very, very best, and Jordan, whatever, they always talk about how they were always nervous.
you got to leverage that with maybe someone like Beckham
Or
someone
Beckham,
that people understand,
someone like that. But the very top sportsmen always talk about how nervous they are, even if it's their 1,000th match and they've won 24 Grand Slams or whatever it might be. And they say if they don't have the nervousness, they don't have that thing, that checker that makes them work harder to win each point. If you go out and you're feeling relaxed, you're more likely to play a duff shot. And I'm assuming it's the same with talking to a room. You tell me. I mean, you've talked to a room of 400 or 500 people in New York. Have you a few times? How have you felt before you go out and do that?
So it's really actually I'm trying to think, how have I felt? I don't feel nervous. I don't feel anything, but I do have 2 or 3 go-to points. So talking to someone without getting anything back is hard, okay? Yeah. Because you are and what's really hard is if I have to talk to people and someone goes to me, "Oh, Dan, here's a list of 10 points we need you to talk about," and I can't do that.
It's like our podcast. We're
terrible. I can't do that. I have to allow the conversation to flow. So the questions between us two are never scripted. Like, they may be in the same sort of area, but they have to bounce around naturally. The conversation has to be natural, right? And what I would say is what you always say is, if anyone's out there, watch Eddie Izzard. Any of the stuff he talks about. He's brilliant at full circling, bringing everything around to what he started up in the end.
But he does that with it. That he decides what that's going to look like. And I think that's really interesting, because you basically would be really good at that. You'd be a really great stand-up, and you'd be really good at motivational speaking, but you'd be a terrible prime minister. Not because you've got the wrong ethics, the wrong moral, all that kind of stuff. Because when you go up and do a prime minister speech, you have to talk about the budget, the whatever.
I would be absolutely no good at it, but I would practice it. So if someone said you've got to do it, when we've done this before, Solly and I, when we've gone out and I've had to do something like this, and sometimes there's something in me, some of the words I can't remember. I had to get Stanley to put Oracy on the screen because I can't. I'll leave here, and 10 minutes after we've done this, I won't remember how to say it. Right, so I have to do that. But so I think there we have a point. So it's consistency. Okay, we know that. It's how does one then learn how to talk freely, like to freestyle a conversation? Because and I'm going to say it, that can be taught. So if you're scared, if you're worried, we've said people are scared, they're indoors all the time, they haven't really gone out. You do this really well on the academy when you talk to people about talking to someone in a coffee shop. So that's where you start the how not to be afraid, right?
So you're saying that is the practice that takes you to...
Hey,
that's
as simple as the academy is. People don't know that they're... But, and how quickly describe the coffee shop scenario.
I think. Well, I mean the coffee shop scenario to me is essentially creating a conversation out of a very mundane situation, and I think that's the easiest, a good sort of starting point for someone who doesn't want to. I think this is very relevant to a process. This isn't what we tell the world to do. This is what we just talk to people about who want to get into real estate.
But it's relevant to anything.
Well, it probably is actually.
Yeah,
You're right. But from our purposes, what we talk about is the coffee shop thing, and it could be anything. But what can you do to start up a conversation with someone? Oh, it's pissing with rain. Do you want to borrow my umbrella? Can I buy it? The classic one, that broker we knew who wanted to strike up. I think he saw someone in an expensive suit and thought, well, that guy's going to have money. That guy's going to own. It's great stuff. That guy will probably either own or want to own or rent or whatever some sort of form of real estate. Okay, here you go, boss suit. So he actually spilt coffee on him. I mean, this is taking it to a level, and I'm not advocating this, but if you're hungry and you want to do the business, maybe. Anyway, so he spilt the coffee on. The guy's obviously completely angry. It's £1,000 suit, whatever. Turns around, sees this guy, biggest smile on his face. He says, "I am so sorry. Let me first of all buy your coffee. Secondly, let's get that to the dry cleaners, which I will of course pay for.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I'm in real estate. Here's my business card, so you know exactly who you're talking to. I'm so sorry. Have you thought about?" And then off you go. I mean, that's an extreme case. The most basic thing can just be obviously talking about the weather or what kind of coffee you've got, or it's hot. Do you want a frappuccino rather than a hot coffee? I don't know.
So if
it's so basic.
Yeah, but if we've got someone that is learning, and I'm going to say learning how to speak, as nuts
I think that's
as that sounds
enough.
like. Yeah. They can, no matter what they're doing, if they're in real estate, car sales, or they sell shoes, or they're a window cleaner. Right, everyone has to speak to each other. So it's the case of just having the bottle. You're in a queue, just to say something to the person in front of you. So think about what you do in your industry and what is a good opener to talk about. And it can be anything. The weather is great, right? So when it's raining, right, I would always turn around to the person in front of me. And if you do a leading conversation, and what I mean with that is you don't start with the hello, how are you, right? You just look at them, maintain eye contact and go, God, isn't it pissing down? Or it's really raining outside at the moment. And then motion, it's soaking out there. And then we follow that up with, isn't it? Okay. People answer, isn't it? There's questions out there you can use that end up leading people into, isn't it, wouldn't it, couldn't you, shouldn't you, don't you? There's a load of them. They answer the isn't it. They don't answer the raining outside. And what they say after the isn't it is, yeah, it is. Now, if they turn around and go, yeah, it is, or oh, it's horrible, or they actually say something else, is it, yeah, it's really raining, or they might even motion to you and go, yes, that's enough. At that point,
touch point.
And that's the start of the conversation. And at that point, you can say nothing further because you've started the conversation, and you can carry on, get your coffee, and leave, or you could have done this a couple of times, ask some people, and you've got to the point where, it's raining outside, whatever, isn't it? Get answered, and you can then say something back. Now you're starting to practice consistency, practice much better. You're starting to learn to speak. So we've got two things that someone can do. What's something else that you in your experience that you've done that we've seen on the academy that's brought up, brings people in, if we've got a conversation starter, we've got that. But how is something else to bring someone in to speak about them? And I'm fishing at the moment because I ain't got a Scooby.
I think one of the things that we've always said is really important, we've always dedicated a section to it, is just, and it's sort of much copied now, isn't it? The whole talking about anything else thing.
That's brilliant.
And I just feel, I now feel embarrassed to say those words because I've been saying them for 3-4 years, and now certain other people are putting out things on LinkedIn with exactly the same words, which is fantastic.
Solly, that is you coined this, so
yeah.
Break it down.
So I think what's important that's general public. That's practice. That's actually just coming out of your shell.
Yeah.
Once in a real estate situation, it's obviously the money is in being in someone's house, isn't it? If you don't get into someone's house and talk to them and have a bit of Oracy skills, then you're not going to get the listing. And actually, going back to what you said about window cleaners and whatever, do you think a window cleaner is more likely to get a tip off the household owner if they strike up a conversation with them?
Absolutely.
Exactly. So this goes back to what I was going to say about being in someone's house. Talk about anything else. It's the Radiohead thing that we talk about the whole time. With me, I'm old school, whatever. If I go in someone's house and I see a stack of CDs, I know I'm in. Yeah. I know I've got material.
Yeah.
Okay, because I can talk about music until the cows come home, and I can take it further than that. If they've got all the great records you could possibly imagine, let's say Radiohead, let's talk about the gigs they were doing back in the early 90s. And then suddenly you're elevated in that person's, your Oracy is taking you right up. Am I more likely, if I'm still talking about music and going to gigs with someone in their own home who is going to sell and wants to appoint an agent, am I more likely to walk out with the property at the price it can sell at, the right price, should we say, and more importantly, a higher fee? I think rather like your window cleaner just now, I think yes. So Oracy in that situation, I think is really, that's the pinnacle for me. Oracy doesn't help you so much when you're walking around a property, because if I walk into this lovely, great big sort of 35, 40 foot living room you've got right here, what's the point of me telling the person who already knows it's 35, 40 foot, what a nice room it is? They know it, they're standing here, it's all done, the job's done.
So you're going into someone's house for the first time, you're walking in, and you've always said your goal is don't do anything about the property.
Yeah.
Find out something.
Because I'm selling me.
Right. So you you would turn around to Amy up there, who recently, on the 14th of September, she would have been 41.
Wow.
Amy,
Really?
yeah. And
10 years younger than me.
Massive loss. But you would go in and you would talk about anything but the property because you want to spark up a conversation.
Yeah.
So when you spark up a conversation, you talk about something you're comfortable with talking about, which is music, because you know it inside out. Yeah. So anyone else that's doing this, if they're getting into whatever industry, if they go back to their safe place, like I remember I said earlier, I have 2 or 3 go-to spaces.
Yeah.
So if they talk about their safe place, and maybe that is with Stanley, it would be a Minecraft when he was younger, and how do they bring that into a conversation? Maybe they see something around a picture. There's an easy way to pick out points. Okay, so if there's a tiny picture of Minecraft on the wall, you can say, "Oh, did you play Minecraft?" You don't care if someone says yes or no. They might say, "Oh no, my son does or my kid does."
Yeah.
"Oh, I was into it." You're getting in, but also you're not talking about the property.
Yep.
That's it. I always, and I think that's point 3, Solly.
I agree.
Because that's brilliant.
It's a bit like, I don't know, a piece of fish or meat or whatever. Take it out of the freezer, which is essentially the moment you walk into someone's home. You're in an ice cold scenario. It takes 5 or 10 minutes for a piece of fish to thaw, right?
Yeah.
So why not take 5 or 10 minutes to talk about someone so that coldness the temperature gauge can just go up a little bit, and then the aforementioned talk about the property, the marketing. You're suddenly, if there's 10 agents, you're in the top 2 or 3, aren't you? Because a lot of agents are in too much of a rush to get the contract signed and get the hell out of there at 1% because they're only pitching their fee. Anyway, but I think what we are saying here is that good old Eton and all, I'm sure other schools as well, for bringing this topic of oracy and speaking in public to back.
I genuinely, I think it's very well deserved. I think it had to happen, and I think the conversation we're even now starting around it is massively. Send them a thank you. Phone up one of your mates and tell them, "Hey Jeffrey, it's Solly. I'm just sitting in the back of my Jag, and
Jeffrey's going to look at me in my placebo t-shirt and go, 'Are you sure you went to Eton?'
Did you the one? Sorry, just to add to that, because it's just come to me. I remember once I used to go to a hairdresser's and to get my hair cut.
I went to a hairdresser's once.
This is before barbers come on the scene, right? And then all of a sudden, Turkish barbers exploded everywhere, right?
Well, the guys that look like they ride Harleys.
Oh my god, yeah. And she was American, right? And she was really, really, really good at warming up the conversation. And just at the end, when she was halfway, maybe 3/4 of the way cutting in the hair, she would say, "Oh, do you see that product I'm putting on your hair?" And I would say, yeah, and she'd be putting on maybe, back then it was probably gel. It was probably Brill cream in your day when you had hair. And she would say, oh, it's $4.99. Do you want me to get you some? And she hadn't finished cutting yet. So it always, to me, came with a point of like, oh, yeah, it looks really good. Well, of course I do, And she would open it, show me the pot and smell it, and it always smells great, right? And that's your conversation about warming people up, you've got to have that involvement. You've got to have that natural connection.
Yeah, because if you just walked in and she'd said, right, before you'd even sat down, said, do you want to buy some gel?
Yeah.
No, of course I don't.
No, you don't. And she probably used to sell the most. So,
But talking of schools, before you sign off, I think you should go around schools and talk to people about this.
Listen, I do. I think you should do as well, because I think the difference between us both makes the difference, because there's so many people that are different out there. Yeah. By deal of demand.
You could become a teacher.
Mate, I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to be a priest as well, but that's for another day. So thank you for listening. Thank you for following. Sign up. Do whatever you have to do. Amazon. I can't remember the rest of them. Spotify. Stanley hasn't put the thing up, so I don't know what Apple. There's
YouTube. Go on YouTube.
YouTube, yeah. Go to YouTube and watch us, because, funnily enough, Solly is better looking in real life. Speak to you soon, guys. Bye.